I'm sorry, did you say something? You want to know note values and time signatures? What, are you like taking music or anything? You are, and like you're really confused on note values and time signatures. I got you. So, one thing about note values and time signatures is that they very much correlate with each other. Note values are very important to know anything in music. So, one thing about note values is that every note is in relation to each other. So, that being said, we can look at the triangle method. Not that triangle method, this triangle method. This triangle method, you can see, has a group of all these notes. The first note here is called the whole note. I put it on the top of the pyramid. Everybody puts it on the top of the pyramid. It is the whole note. It has all the beats, all the notes. It's just the whole note. Just understand that. The next notes that you see here are called half notes. And they're exactly what they say. They're half of a whole note. Now, these next notes that you see here are called quarter notes. Quarter notes are a quarter of a whole note. Now you see how everything relates to the whole note? And here, lastly, we have eighth notes. And eighth notes are an eighth of a whole note. So everything correlates with each other. Now, before I move on, you may be like, oh no, I still have some more questions. But we're going to go on and talk about time signatures. And I'll go back and continue to talk about note values. You'll see how it all makes sense. So here we have our top 3 time signatures. You're like, oh my gosh, these just look like fractions. Am I back in math class? No, you're not. These tell us how many beats are in a measure and how and which note gets the beat. So here for 4/4 time signature, this top note tells us how many beats are in a measure. So it being 4 tells us that we have 4 beats per measure. Here, it's also another 4. And you may be confused on how that's going to tell us which note gets the beat. And what do we mean when we say which note gets the beat? When a note gets the beat, it gets the downbeat, which is the first beat. And this, according to here with the 4, that means that the quarter note gets the beat, the downbeat. So that means the quarter note gets 1 beat. Now, in the 6/8 time signature, we all know what the top note means. That means we get 6 beats per measure. And the bottom note, I know now you're a little confused because 4 meant a quarter note. What does 8 mean? Well, you have to think of it as fractions. Yes, we're going back to math. With 8, that means that the 8th note gets the beat. And with 3/4, I'm pretty sure you've guessed it. What does the 3 mean? We have 3 beats per measure. And what does the 4 mean? We have the quarter note taking the beat. Now, how does this help us make sense of note values? Well, you see here, we have a little example of a 4/4 time signature with the staff lines and everything. And here I'm going to put a half note, a quarter note, and 2/8 notes. So we all know that the notes are in relation to each other. That being said, in a 4/4 time signature, we know that the quarter note gets the beat, which means that the quarter note equals 1 beat. And if that's the case, then we know that an 1/8 note is half of a quarter note, as we can go back to our triangle method and see that it clearly is half of a quarter note. That being said, the 1/8 note gets half a beat. And if the quarter note is half of a half note, then that means that the half note is equal to 2 beats. So in order to count this rhythm we have here, we can go ahead and say that our half note is 1, 2, our quarter note is 1. Well, if we're counting it as a whole, then we would count the 4 beats in the measure. So our quarter note would be the 3, and our 1/8 notes would be 4 plus and, because it is half a beat for each. Now, you may be quite confused as to what do you mean 4 and, but we're just counting 1, 2, 3. Well, 4 and is 1 beat. But when you split up the beats for quarter notes, specifically when they are half of 1 beat, you add in the and to emphasize that it's half a beat. So technically, if you want to be precise in your counting, you would say for your half note, 1 and 2 and for your quarter note, you'd say 3 and then you would go on and say 4 and for your 2/8 notes. But now that we got our basics out the way, now I can tell you some cool facts about these. So, with our time signatures, I'm going to use 4/4 as an example. With 4/4, we know that the top note is the beats per measure. And the bottom note tells us what note gets the beat. But a really cool fact to finding how many beats the whole note gets is just simply looking at the top note. See, the whole note takes up as many beats there are in one measure. And now, as we know how to read the time signature, we know that the top number tells us the beats per measure. So in order to know how many beats a whole note gets, all we have to do is look at the top note of the time signature. And that's a cool fact. Well, I hope that my little teachings are going to somewhat help you in your music class, but if you have any more questions, feel free to let me know.